Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the AutoGrade podcast. My name is Daniel Lugo. Today, I'm your host, and today I have the pleasure of having here John Borden. I hope I'm saying your name right. And today is going to be a great conversation that I think a lot of you will learn something from it. So I hope that you guys take out your notebooks. And please, John, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, Daniel, thank you so much for holding this space for us today. Name's John Borden. We found each other through Podmatch, and thing that stands out to a lot of people is my history with ultra marathon running, strongman competitions, and the fact that I wrote a book about a life changing experience that I had 3.5 years ago. So, happy to discuss all that and whatever other questions you might have about crazy life that I've gotten to live over these 33 years.
All right. So let's go and start it then. So the first question I have for you is, has there been a moment in your journey? I know that you just said that you went through a life changing experience when you felt you were at rock bottom and that you didn't see the light of day.
Dude, yeah. I mean, my whole time in my late teens and 20s, not even late teens, early teens, I just really struggled with identity and knowing who I was and feeling comfortable in my own skin. There was a number of times when I contemplated taking my own life and, just questioned if it was even worth continuing to live. There just were a number of days where you feel like you're not really contributing anything to society, like that, you're just creating more trouble than you're helping. And, there were definitely periods where, getting to the point where I'm at now, where I really feel like I'm, living a good life and making an impact for people and producing good things in the world, would have been a far fetched dream.
No, that's incredible because I am writing my own book now that
Okay.
hopefully coming out in May. And one of the things I mentioned is that you have to find purpose in what you're
Mm-hmm.
going through.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, my purpose was to build this kind of community where people like you, like me, who have gone through things, we can spoke, we can speak about them. The things that we learn, what we went through, because we can help each other. That's why I think we're here in this world to help each other. So I get the feeling because I've been there too, like questioning what am I about to do with my life,
Mm-hmm.
right? I remember a moment in my journey where I look at the mirror. I dropped 50 pounds in one surgery. So I was like, who is this? I had to ask myself a question that only I would know,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like for me, sorry, for you, was there a moment like that, like a specific moment that you say, back 3 years ago or something like that, that you went
Yeah.
through something?
Well, so Daniel, quick question. When you lost that 50 pounds, was that like bariatric surgery? Were you overweight, or was that a complication from a different type of surgery and you just like were really emaciated?
So I was in a different complication. It was Crohn's disease. It got
Mm,
to a point that they got so the colon got so inflamed that it just, I think it's called puncture or something like that in
mm-hmm.
medical terms. So they had to do a emergency surgery, and once they did that emergency surgery, I dropped 50 pounds right then and there.
Yeesh, man. Well, props to you for going through that and coming out stronger for it.
Thank you.
One thing that you had said earlier is that having purpose is so big, and there's a saying with the right why, you can figure out any how. And that's huge, because when you're thinking about what you want to do in this world, there's so much possibility that we have. There's so many things that we have at our fingertips. And if you get very clear on what you want, then everything else becomes easy because you don't have to question about, waking up early or putting in the extra work or, whatever it is to get to where you want to go. For me, from, an ultra running standpoint, that means waking up at 4 in the morning and going out and running 20 miles on a Friday morning before you go start to work. Right. So there's a lot of commitment that goes into doing stuff like that. And if I didn't have a strong why, and for me, my why is to help change the world's understanding of psychedelics. The experience that I had 3.5 years ago that changed my life is centered around psilocybin mushrooms. And, there's so much negative information out there about those things and, LSD and DMT and everything else in the book. And that I just want to show people that there's incredible positive to be gained from those type of things and that they should be made widely available and accepted across the world. So, that's really my why. And it makes, everything else that I do to bring attention to that fact, uh, more and more feasible for me.
Yeah, I agree because I just read a book. I finished it not a while ago. With Simon Sinek. Do you know who he is?
No.
No. Okay. That book speaks about having a why.
Hmm.
If companies don't have a why, they don't have nowhere to stand. Apple has the thing for innovation. They want to be, they want to beat the market. So you have to find your why, like you said, and just push through it. I can imagine myself waking up at Friday at 4 in the morning to do a 20-minute mile run, right? But I know the work that I have to do to accomplish my why, right? The reason that I'm here. So with that, in that journey that you went through, what motivated you, or who motivated you to say, I'm gonna switch this now. I'm gonna put this on my mind, and here's my why.
Yeah, well, it was something that just kind of happened by accident. The whole experience that I had with the mushrooms that flipped my life on its head. Up until that point, I was depressed. I was dealing with anxiety. I had a bad drinking problem, an addiction to cocaine, and so many things that were just negative habits in my life. And I had the experience that I had with mushrooms, and it just completely sucked me out of that. And so when I looked at the change that I was able to make, I recognized that it was something that, you know, I was fortunate enough to have happen to me because you know, I'm willing to take risks and I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm willing to try things that maybe, aren't mainstream. Um, but other people wouldn't have that same type of courage, they wouldn't have that same type of brazenness. And so I wanted to, kind of bridge the gap for people who, might be stuck in anxiety or depression or substance abuse or whatever it is, to have the ability to try something that is shown to be incredible for a mental health standpoint, and I just want more people to have the opportunity that I had to make themselves better.
Oh, that's good. And what's the biggest lesson that you learned going through that?
Oh, I mean, it would really, be, what are you talking about, because there's so many different things. It's been 3.5 years since I had that experience, and, whether it's the, initial get myself clean and off, bad habits of all types, or whether it was, the transition into, uh, you know, eh, uh, accepting God and the Creator into my life, or whether it was, going through the experience of meeting my wife, or getting into the ultra marathon running and strongman and stuff like that. There's so many different lessons. But I think the biggest thing is that just if you create a clear vision for what you want in life, the only thing stopping you is your own willingness to go for it.
That's right. But having been in those shoes, speaking out of experience, sometimes we are not able to realize, having a why, and just pushing ourselves. That takes a lot. Like for people to go from being down at the bottom and say, I'm going to change my life and I'm going to do this and push through every single day is nothing that happens to everyone. So for me, it has to be more of, yeah, you need to find your why, but I think you need to find your footing first, right? Like for me, that was faith, right? My faith is what, like Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. So for me, my faith was the footing. And then I was able to find myself and then push.
Mm,
I think it takes a lot of steps to get there. For me, I don't know what you think.
hmm Um, yeah, I mean, so it all comes down to what you believe of yourself, and what you believe of the world around you. Having faith in a greater power. I use God, I use the universe, I use the creator, all kind of interchangeably, right? I don't follow any specific type of religion, but I have my own relationship with God that has led to, a beautiful presence in my life, and hyper grateful for that. But if you go by like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety is one of the biggest ones, right? And so safety and making sure that you're able to take care of yourself and that you're not going to get hurt and that you're not going to starve or whatever it is really the biggest thing. And so you know making sure that those needs are taken care of first, and that you can proceed in your direction without fear of life crumbling around you is obviously major. So, you need to have that, and if having faith in God uh, contributes to that, right? And sometimes faith is all you need, right? Sometimes the world can be crumbling down around you. But if you have faith that everything's going to work out, it's either going to or you're going to die. And so, it's going to be a good way out of it anyway.
Yeah, you need to have faith, but you also need to put the work in. Right? It's not
hmm
only God's job or the universe job to give you the life that you want. Right? You
Yeah,
have to push yourself.
it would be pretty silly to just sit there and say, "Hey, God's got this," right? Have you seen the movie Leave the World Behind?
No, I
No.
haven't.
Uh, it came out a couple years ago around Christmas, but it has to do with this white family goes on vacation out in the Hamptons, and there's a black family that like owns the house that they're staying. It's an Airbnb. Anyway, the world goes to shit, and the two families are there in the house, kind of learning to live with each other as the world is crumbling down around them. Right, like all the internet goes out, and there's ships crashing and planes crashing, and all the cars are crashing themselves. And anyway, um, the woman in the movie tells a story about a guy who's on an island, and he prays to God to save him. And he's praying, he's praying, he's praying, and all of a sudden, a helicopter comes by, and guy's like, "Oh, get on the helicopter," and the guy goes, "No, I prayed to God, and God said He would save me." Okay, so the helicopter leaves, and a ship comes by. You want to get on? No, no, no. God's going to save me. Then you know, a blimp comes by. You want to get on? No, God's going to save me. And the guy dies on the island, and he goes and talks to God. And he's like, "God, what the hell? You're supposed to save me." He goes, "Bro, I sent you a ship, a helicopter, and a blimp. Why didn't you get on?"
Yeah, yeah. We had to do our own job. It's like analyze because God is not human. He's not human, so he's not gonna express himself in a human way. He, he's not gonna show up, grab you, and place you in safety.
hmm
He's gonna provide you with ways, like he did in the movie. He provided an helicopter, a ship, a bling, so that he could escape. But we have to analyze that he's superhuman. We are not gonna communicate English to English or the language that you speak to the language that he speaks. Right?
hmm
We're not. So we have to be aware of the fact that we have to push ourselves past and believe that God is doing job through you.
hmm And you see the hand of God in so many different things, and it's really beautiful when you do start to recognize it, because there's some things that are just so undeniably the work of the Creator, and to believe that they're anything else, whether that's just like luck or coincidence or whatever, is just silly. And so it's just an insane amount of gratitude for every time that does show up, and you see the things that have the markings of the Lord at work.
Yeah, we do. And sometimes people take it for granted. People talk about all the evil that there is in the world, and there is, right? But there's much more
Mhm.
good in the world, but we just
Yeah.
don't see it. Our brain is capacitated to only see the negative.
The title of my book is "Your Mindset is Your Reality," and that was originally a text that I sent my mom after I flipped the way that I thought about the world and thus changed my life, right? And that goes down to exactly what you're saying, is that, like, the old me would look for the negative in the world. And that's why I was depressed. I was always looking for the negative and I was always finding the negative. But then when you realize that you can just start to look for the positive, and even if something is extremely negative, find the positive in it, and you're going to be in so much of a better place mentally because you're choosing to see the positive rather than choosing to see the negative. It's all about what you decide to look for.
Yeah. And, talking about your book, can you please tell us more about it and what inspired you to write the book?
Yeah, man. Well, the book "Your Mindset Is Your Reality" it details, kind of who I was before I found psilocybin mushrooms, the depression, the anxiety, substance abuse problems, having issues with my family and relationships and so on and so forth. And then it talks about 6 different experiences that I had with mushrooms over the span of a month, in which I was able to change essentially all my negative habits and near instant. Gave up binge drinking, gave up cocaine, gave up chewing tobacco and porn and chasing women and yada yada yada. And then it goes up until I started to really get into fitness in a strong sense and received my first invitation to speak publicly about my experience. And so it's just a story that takes the reader through everything that went into the transformation that allowed me to get out of living a purposeless life and step into what I've decided to be in this world.
Brilliant. Where can people find this book?
It's on Amazon. It's also on Apple Books and Audible. The title is Your Mindset Is Your Reality. It's got a purple cover.
All right, all right. So I will leave the link down in the description for everybody to go buy the book. I think it's important for us to keep reading because sometimes we find inspiration from things that we read, from things that we watch, and people around the world. And that's one of the purposes of the podcast is because I bring guests in so that each guest has a different experience in life, and someone out there will listen to the podcast and will find it purposeful, and they will use it and change their life. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do here in the podcast. And thank you for being here and sharing your story.
Of course, Daniel. Thanks for having me, man. And, that's exactly why I like to have conversations like this. Um, it's not exactly like this is Joe Rogan, right? It's not like there's 10 million people listening, but if there's one person's listening who says, shit, that was just kind of an average guy who is now doing incredible things with their life. What could I do if I start to believe that I could do incredible things? And I hope that, if anything, I leave people with that question is what's something incredible that you wish you were doing that you could just go for and see if it happens?
Yeah, it's better to go and try that dream and fail than not ever try it at all and never knowing if it's gonna fail or not.
Yeah, yeah. There's a quote about love, right? It's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all.
All right, so getting into your fitness life, what has been the hardest competition you have ever done?
uh, you know, the hardest one that I ever did was probably the first one I ever did. And that's because I hadn't run in over 12 years before my first competition, and that was a Spartan race. It was a half marathon. And I signed up for it 2 weeks before the race. I ran like a total of 20 miles in 2 weeks before the half marathon and went out there and did it. It took me 3 hours and 38 minutes. And, it's a half marathon with a bunch of obstacles and stuff like that, which was good for the top 5%. Uh, but I was in so much pain. I was so exhausted. And even though I've done much longer races since then, uh, my conditioning has gotten much better. So they haven't been quite as much of a shock to the system. So that first one was probably the most difficult, you know, given the context.
Yeah, I can imagine because when you start at the gym, the first week it hurts the most.
Hmm.
Then when you get once you get used to it, it's normal little life.
Yeah. And, the body adapts really quickly, because, like, I did that half marathon, and then that was the longest that I'd run, up until my first ultra, which was 9 months later, and I did a 46-mile ultra, and I couldn't really walk the day after that. But then I did it again a year later, and, 48 hours after the second time, I did 7 miles with a 35-pound vest on. So I felt good enough to go for a run with a weighted vest on 2 days after the second time I did 46. And then I did 100, and, I spoke on stage 12 hours after the race ended, and felt totally fine 2 days later. And then I just won my first race that I ever won, 2 weeks ago. So, that felt awesome. It was 5 miles on the treadmill every hour until there was 1 person remaining. And so I won that, and, you know, it felt honestly like I could have kept going and going and going. Uh, if I still had the a reason to keep going, I could have gone much longer than I did. But it felt really cool to be, that deep into the race and still have so much more left in the tank.
No, it's just incredible. Like for me, my goal is to do an Ironman.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, I want to go that way in the fitness world. And hearing 100-mile run, no, not for me.
It's awesome, man. You could do it.
It's, I have to prepare myself. Running is not the the easiest thing for me,
Are you
but
talking
I know with preparation I can do it.
you swim, you bike?
I'm about to start swimming because of the Ironman,
Okay.
right?
Hell yeah.
So I like for me, my opinion, swimming is the best exercise out of all of them.
Mhm.
So I think it combines everything. That's why I want not only want to do it because of the Ironman, but it also is a great exercise to put in my schedule.
But yeah.
So I'm putting that in. I'm locking in. I want to lock in that Ironman later in life. I It's not gonna be near in the future, but I have to prepare myself for it,
Mhm.
and it starts now.
Beautiful one. Yeah, dude. 1 foot in front of the other, right? It's awesome that you're already into swimming because that's the most difficult part of triathlons for me. I still don't really know how to swim very well, so I sink like a stone. So if you can get that down, the rest will come pretty easy.
Yeah, and John, one question here: what would you like your legacy to be?
I want to be known as someone that changes the world's opinion of mushrooms. I want to show people what's possible for themselves and ask people to dream really big in life.
Great. So, is there anything that you would like to leave for the audience before we go?
Daniel, just how do you eat an elephant?
Piece by piece.
Yeah, one bite at a fucking time, baby. And so, no matter what you dream that your life is gonna be, chunk that down to little small pieces of elephant and just keep eating, baby.
Yes, sir. I think we should all follow that advice. Go piece by piece, day at a time, and
Oh,
keep
yeah.
biting. Yeah. So, thank you so much, John, for coming in here. Thank you for being a guest on my podcast. Thank you for sharing your experience. For those of you that want to go buy the book, I'm gonna leave the link in the description. Thank you so much, all of you, for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this video with the people that you love so that we can keep sharing this throughout the world and keep changing lives. Thank you, John, again for coming here. God bless you all and take care.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate your time, brother.
Thank you, John. Take care, guys.